Almighty God, enter now our hearts and take dominion. Take us to thy heart. Open our understanding through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, through Lord Maitreya, Gautama Buddha, Lord Sanat Kumara. Seven Elohim of God, recreate us as we engage in the creative process. In the image and likeness of God, restore us to the point of beginning with Brahman and the Word. O come forth, mighty creative fires, Spirit of the resurrection, violet flame angels and legions of Aquarius. Let the fiat of the Lord be with us this day as we pursue the unraveling of the not self and the manifestation of the divine self. We come for wholeness before thy altar, O God. Make us one. Restore the Alpha to Omega. Let the great sun dance of our cosmic union, causal bodies of twin flames merging, be now the celebration of life in this day of endings, preparing for new beginnings. O God, let all that is holy and pure and lovely, all that thou hast made and that we have ratified of thyself, be carried forward. Let all that can be cast into the sacred fire in this hour be cast into that sacred fire. O Father, Mother God, in the great joy of thy love, we commune together for the rebuilding of the temple of man. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Divine Mother. Amen. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I would like to invite you to sing with me now to Hesperus, so that you may invoke the light of Sanat Kumara and Lady Master Venus. I ask you to do so and to call for mighty victory and beloved Meta, to make your personal calls for the resolution of your psychology and the setting of your feet firmly on the path of true spirituality and spiritualization of consciousness. Hesperus. Number 557. Please make your calls. Thank you. Please be seated. Take out your notebooks. The Psychology of Zalem. A Study of Reincarnation and Karma, Part 2. Each individual's family has a unique configuration and therefore a unique impact on his psychological development. When a family is dysfunctional, that is, disturbed, its impact on a child is going to produce or reinforce negative traits. The child will have to come to terms with these negative traits when he becomes an adult. Usually children and adults who exhibit psychological problems come from dysfunctional families, with parents who have had problems of their own. Psychological problems may or may not be evident in someone's behavior. The person may have emotional conflicts at an underlying level that don't show up in surface behavior. Conflicts may be at such an unconscious level that a person doesn't realize that he has psychological problems until he has to handle a major crisis or change in his life. I would like to outline for you 9 types of parent-child interactions that Dr. Susan Forward and other experts have described as toxic or harmful to healthy development. These interactions are physically and emotionally distressing to the child and to the entire family. They may actually damage or retard the child's emotional development. In addition to parents, the siblings and other relatives and friends who are close to the family, such as grandparents living with grandchildren, may have a strong impact on the child's development. These people are called significant others. Significant others. Therefore, when I use the word parent in the following descriptions, I am also referring to any of these significant others who may be playing a strong role in the child's development. Inadequate parents. Inadequate parents are unable to meet their children's needs. They expect or demand that their children take care of them. The child feels he can never do enough. He feels guilty and inadequate and has an overdeveloped sense of responsibility. The child is deprived of a role model that shows him how to give and receive love. The child or spouse may be called codependent, in that he makes another person's welfare the entire basis of his life. Frequently, the codependent is the spouse or child of a person who is addicted to alcohol or drugs. The codependent's need to maintain the relationship becomes an addiction in itself. This occurs because the child or spouse lacks an adequate sense of self-worth and feels unimportant. If the parent leaves, the child feels hurt, resentful, and guilty. Children often feel like it is their fault when parents divorce. Neglected children have a hazy idea of what a close relationship is really like. They may put up a wall against a close relationship. They can have a strong drive for success and turn to a career like the theater to live out a fantasy. As Dr. W. Hugh Missildine puts it, when you're a nobody, the only way to be anybody is to be somebody else. Then there are the controllers. Parents who are afraid of losing their children try to make their children dependent upon them. Controlling parents see their child getting out on his own or their child's marriage as a threat to their control. These parents manipulate their children so that the children feel they are the ones in need or feel guilty for wanting to do something for themselves. The children have a weak sense of identity. They have trouble defining themselves as an identity apart from their parents. Controlling parents may excessively punish their children. They may instill in them the feeling that they are always bad. Their children continue to be hard on themselves or feel resentful or revengeful towards parents or strict schools. Self-punishment can take the form of becoming a workaholic and or feeling guilty about taking any time to relax. Next, we have the alcoholics. The alcoholic's family covers up the alcoholism and tries to put on a charade of a normal family. The child becomes the parent and feels guilty that he cannot solve adult problems. The child has difficulty developing close relationships and does not trust others. The child often has repressed anger against parents. He becomes either a superachiever or a scapegoat, taking the blame for someone else's misbehavior. Next, we have the verbal abusers. Parents who are verbal abusers insult and belittle their child. Parents often hide their abuse behind the pretense of humor. Children internalize the critical comments of their parents. And then the children develop a negative opinion of themselves. They go through life expecting to be hurt or humiliated. The verbally abused child suffers in solitude. His wounds may not be apparent to anyone but himself. Let's remember that a child can be thus afflicted not only by parents, but by grandparents, by siblings, by others in the household, the significant others. Then there are physical abusers. Out-of-control parents abuse their children. They take out their frustrations and insecurities on their children. Many were battered children themselves. A common pattern is that the spouse of the parent who is being openly abusive does not protect the child. So when the father or mother is abusing the child, the other one does not come to the defense of the child. This parent may be considered a silent partner or passive abuser. Battered children blame themselves for the crimes committed against them. They become depressed, lonely, and fearful, yet filled with repressed rage. Then there are the sexual abusers. Sexually abused children blame themselves. Shame is added to their guilt. Many incest victims remain fused to their abusive parents. They do not want to give up the myth of the happy family. Then there is the perfectionist. The perfectionist parent asks the child to perform at a higher standard than is possible for the child. Acceptance is withheld until the child does better. The child's striving does not bring the child satisfaction. He thinks he is either inferior or superior to others and always feels pushed to do better. Then there are the over-submissive parents. Over-submissive parents allow the children to set the rules in the family and submit to their children's whims. Their children develop into impulse-driven adults. They are subject to temper tantrums, obesity, and impulsive spending. The overindulgent parents. The overindulgent parent provides his child with toys, presents, and services before he has shown any interest in them or asked for them. The child becomes bored and discontented, expecting that others will take care of him. He carries this trait into adulthood. As an adult, he finds it hard to cope with the demands of reality. When modern psychologists work therapeutically with someone who comes from a dysfunctional family, they often work with the healing of what they call the hurt child. We come into adulthood carrying with us that inner hurt child. This child reflects all of the traumatic experiences we have had in our childhood. The child still experiences the hurt, anger, resentment, and sadness that he felt when he was in a painful childhood situation. But we also have a happy inner child. This is the child who reflects our happy, positive childhood experiences. The inner child functions at the unconscious or subconscious level, but the inner child comes to our conscious awareness in situations that remind us of early life traumas. When we remember an incident, we re-experience the feeling associated with it. When we have a certain feeling, we may remember early life incidents associated with it. As a child, we also internalize the critical, abusive, or hurtful aspects of our parents. As adults, we often treat ourselves in the same painful way we were treated as children. For example, when we criticize or condemn ourselves, we are being the negative parent. When we feel hurt by that criticism, we are experiencing the inner child. Even though we may no longer be living with our parents, we still carry within us the abusive parent. The goal of healing the inner child is to transmute the pain of the hurt child and allow the healthy child to emerge. The healthy inner child gives us our spontaneity, ingenuity, creativity, and sense of wonder about life. It is through accepting the hurt inner child and becoming the loving, healing parent to ourselves that we begin the resolution of our psychology. There are key books that will enable you to go through this process, along with the teachings of the Ascended Masters, the use of the violet flame, calls to Astrea, work on the electronic belt patterns, and calls for the binding of the dweller on the threshold. This is a list of the books. Understanding Yourself, Opening the Door to the Superconscious Mind by Cathumi, Lanto, and Meru. Prayer and Meditation by Jesus and Cathumi. Corona Class Lessons for Those Who Would Teach Men the Way by Jesus and Cathumi. The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection. The Freedom of the Child, a 4-cassette album of teachings I've given. The ABCs of Your Psychology on the Cosmic Clock, which is an 8-cassette album. Making Peace with Your Parents, the Key to Enriching Your Life and All Your Relationships by Harold Bloomfield. Adult Children of Alcoholics by Janet Geringer Woititz. Struggle for Intimacy by the same author. It Will Never Happen to Me by Claudia Black. Then There is People of the Lie, The Hope for Healing Human Evil by M. Scott Peck, and his other book, The Road Less Traveled, A New Psychology of Love, Traditional Values, and Spiritual Growth. The Invisible Partners, How the Male and Female in Each of Us Affects Our Relationships by John Sanford. Necessary Losses, The Loves, Illusions, Dependencies, and Impossible Expectations That All of Us Have to Give Up in Order to Grow. That's by Judith Viorst. Healing the Child Within, Discovery and Recovery for Adult Children of Dysfunctional Families by Charles Whitfield. Children of Trauma, Rediscovering Your Discarded Self by Jane Middleton Motts. Your Inner Child of the Past by Hugh Missildine, Toxic Parents by Susan Forward, and Healing Your Aloneness, Find Love and Wholeness Through Your Inner Child by Erica Choppick and Margaret Paul. As I have said, the path of spiritual resolution enables us to bring about a full psychological resolution. This is why we study reincarnation and karma, and why we enter into the practice of confessing our sins to God, to our Holy Christ Self, of coming to the altar, receiving our penance, receiving communion, and therefore being able to go forward because we accept the forgiveness of a loving Father, Mother God, and a loving Christ Self. The ability to accept forgiveness is essential to this path. Sometimes we forgive others more readily than we forgive ourselves. Non-acceptance of God's forgiveness of you, when you sincerely implore it, when you are determined to go and sin no more and you do not, this non-acceptance denotes a certain point of spiritual pride and even omnipotence, where you do not accept that forgiveness because psychologically you perceive yourself as greater than God, and that you can say to God, you cannot forgive me, I have committed the unforgivable sin, I can never be forgiven, no one can forgive me. Now you may not put it into those words, but your continual condemnation of yourself, continually verbalizing the inner bad father or the inner bad mother, is saying just that. So being able to receive and give forgiveness is fundamental to the path. When you can forgive others of their frailties and their scars, psychological scars, you can also have compassion for yourself, and the reverse is also true. As we have said, in addition to our psychology, developed in this and past lives, we all come into this embodiment having to deal with that allotment of karma that the great beings of light who govern our destiny under God have decreed for us, and which we have decreed for ourselves. For our karma is a decree, and many of us desire to accelerate the balancing of karma. We ask perhaps for more karma than we might have had to balance in this life because we want to get on with our mission and our destiny. Our karma puts us in circumstances that cause us to develop. And in that development process, we also develop a certain psychology. So I want to point out that our psychology is not merely the result of our interpersonal relations since birth. It is a result of the karmic condition, being in that karmic condition with certain karmic individuals, parents, grandparents, siblings, our ancestral tree, and so forth, creates the psychology. So we are not entirely victims. We have created a karma which necessitates we experience certain things, and in the process we are also developing in this life our emotions, our memories, our minds, and so forth. So our psychology in turn becomes a part of the karma
that we have to work through. It is very important to reach the point of adult responsibility where we can say, I have no one, absolutely no one to blame but myself for my karma and my psychology. My parents, those whom I have known, are responsible for their own actions, but I am responsible for how I react to what they did to me, and I am responsible for what I will do about it today. There is a juvenile attitude across America today with the discovery of these levels of psychology, where children become angry at parents and stay angry at parents and have a tremendous resentment for the fact that their parents were imperfect. This is an imperfect world, and we descend into it because we have our own karma of being imperfect. Many parents try very hard to do their best for us. They make mistakes thinking they are doing good for our souls and for our beings. Many of them are influenced by all kinds of philosophies and psychological systems of child rearing, and they make mistakes. And we have to forgive our parents their mistakes, even as we will forgive ourselves for coming into a situation and bringing our own mistakes with us of the past. So unless we can have that compassion and not come down upon our parents as though they should have been omniscient and known every possible technique of dealing with us, and dealing with us, you see, not just as a baby like every other baby, but a unique person, the unique person that we were in the womb, already burdened, already having scars, already having genius, already having talents, already knowing how to manipulate parents. We have to realize that parents would have to be absolutely geniuses to know from day one exactly how to deal with us every step of the way. So I think we need to come off of this and recognize, okay, there were those elements, but I am who I am, and I am a soul in God, and I am an immortal God-free being, and I am determining my course in this life. I understand what it means to have dysfunctional parents. I will send them mercy and forgiveness and healing, and I will make certain that I correct those elements in myself, give my own children a better opportunity to become who they are, and in the process of trying, I may make mistakes. People who do nothing are the only people in the world who make no mistakes. So I think we need to get on with living and be willing to charge forward in the understanding that we do have a Holy Christ self, we do have an I Am presence, and we do have that glorious dispensation of the violet flame. When you learn from the books I have just listed to you, these elements of what may have affected you and why you react the way you react, you simply direct the full power of your Holy Christ self into action in your four lower bodies, in the superconscious, conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind, into the electronic belt. You give the violet flame, and you claim yourself an identity in God, an individualization independent of and apart from the human condition in which you find yourself. You always have to remember that these four lower bodies are merely coats of skins, as it is referred to in Genesis. Coats of skins. We wear them. They affect how our soul expresses itself. But we will not wear these bodies and their momentums forever. We have an ascended master light body. And we will cast off these coats of skins when we have worked through them and brought ourselves into resolution and brought them into submission to the living Christ. So you have four children. You have four lower bodies. You are already a parent while you are still a child. Your four lower bodies are your four horsemen, and as you train them, so they will function for you. As you indulge them, they will be indulgent, and so forth. As you are divisive in your thinking and feeling, your four lower bodies will not work as a harmonious whole. So we already have a laboratory of self, and those of us who have tried it out know just how much those four lower bodies can perform when we determine that they are going to perform, and just how lazy the mind, the physical body, and the memory, and even the desire body can get when we give it no stimulus, no encouragement, no goading to move forward, and no exercise. So we can see a parallel here even in the bringing up of our children. I believe that if you count the children you have, the first child represents your etheric body, the second your mental, the third the emotional, the fourth the physical, and it starts round again, depending on how many children you have. And so if you work through the transmutation on those lines of the clock in those four lower bodies, you can see how you have a lot more to give to your children. And you will find that your children each have a greater development in those areas according to the order of their appearance in your family. There is no question about it that the law of God requires that we work through relationships that we have with people with whom we have karma. We just don't walk out on relationships. We determine that whatever is the problem, we are going to resolve it. If we have to change ourselves, we will change ourselves until we can be completely harmonious and loving and able to work with a certain individual. That individual may not change, but we will know when we have brought to him or to her everything that we have of our God-free being, and when we truly have conquered our pride, our stubbornness, our rebellion, our resentment, our envy, our jealousy, and all of those things that go into interpersonal relationships. When we can truly stand at the altar before God and say, I have nothing toward this individual but love, and I am loving no matter what this individual does or says, we know that that is coming toward the resolution, which is the liberation, desiring nothing of that person but only to serve the Lord, the Christ in that one, and to help that soul. We come to a point of personal love and impersonal love, and we find that when we have passed all of our tests with that individual and served to the level where the karma is also balanced, that God will change our circumstance. And it's very important that we see that, and that we not be so quick to move away from those individuals where the karma is not balanced, and when it is not balanced, we will have to meet that one again, or do some mighty work at inner levels and in our physical embodiment of violet flame to transmute it. Sometimes El Morya advises people that they can balance their remaining karma with others by the violet flame, praying diligently for them. Sometimes he has said in the sponsoring of children that if a couple would work for 6 months giving the violet flame for a soul not of the light that they would have to have had, would they not give the violet flame, that they can supersede that obligation and go on to bearing a child of greater light. And that is something that you can receive as a dispensation from a master when you have a guru like El Morya, who cares so much personally for you, and to see that you do have the maximum opportunity to take advantage of the cycles of life that we have. So there are many boons and blessings when we pursue this path diligently. And of course, we never know what karmic individuals we have clearly missed, steered clear of entirely because of the Master's guidance, and because in faith, without total knowing, we have preferred the altar of God than to go out and sow all kinds of experiences in the world. In the meantime, by being at the altar, we transmute unnecessary situations, that is, situations that are not necessary for us to have encounters in, because we have transcended those levels, yet the karma remains with the individuals. So rather than to get entangled with them in relationships and all kinds of involvements, we can be at the altar and transmute it. It's a very important call to make when you are giving the violet flame, to ask that everyone with whom you have karma on this planet, in whatever octave, and anywhere else in the universe, receive a gift of the violet flame that you are invoking, that you might balance that karma, and that individual might have a stupendous opportunity to move forward and no longer be burdened by whatever you might have placed upon him or her as a burden. The inner temple work resolves much, but there are situations and relationships that we seem to have to go through, that we need, and because we have made the decisions to get into them, we know that we had the need at some level of our being. That doesn't mean to say we have to be into those relationships forever, but it does mean that when we find ourselves in them, that we must work very hard to find the reason for the relationship, to make certain we balance the karma, and make certain that all who are parties to that relationship have a positive outcome and a victory out of whatever situation it is. I do not like to see people walking out on their karma. I think it's very, very important that you consider this, because when you are in relationships that simply had to be, and you recognize they had to be, then is when you can really work deeply on your psychology, rather than waiting around for this person to change so that they will finally be made in your image and likeness exactly the way you want them to be, the perfect person. You start perfecting yourself and being that compassionate Buddha and that blessed presence of the Virgin Mother, and where you are ministering to life until either that relationship accelerates or there is nothing more to be of fruit from that tree that has several branches, including yourself, other people, and other people who have been a part of the greater mandala. What we also have to consider is a main reason for resolving the psychology of our childhood is that we know it came about karmically because of our involvement with both of our parents. We want to resolve our feelings about our parents not merely for ourselves, but because we want to balance the karma that we had with them. Often parent-child relationships denote very serious problems in the past or very good karma of the past. And whichever the case may be, it is a tremendous opportunity, and we do resolve all the way back through the ancestral tree. We decide consciously or unconsciously if we're going to outplay that psychology with someone who we are psychologically, karmically attracted to. This is another point that you have to realize. There are key people in life that you meet. You know you've known them before. You know you have a work to do with them. Perhaps you are to be married. Perhaps it is a business venture. Perhaps it is something creative. Then there are many other encounters where you may feel an immediate pull or recognition, but all is not of the highest vibration. You may feel some minor notes and vibrations that are not so good, which tell you that there is something of an obligation here and something of a burden here, and that you need to be very careful. People who do not have a path, who do not have the violet flame, who are not initiates of the Great White Brotherhood, have to go through many situations that those of you who are diligent on the path do not have to go through. Just because you have known someone before, just because you've been married to them before, or been in a close situation, does not mean you have to repeat it in this life. There may be no reason whatsoever to repeat that relationship. You may have a few months' worth of karma. Why compromise your path and the law? Why not go to the altar, do your violet flame work, and render whatever service you feel compelled to give to that person to help them along life's way? But don't let them become psychologically dependent upon you or in a position of expecting that you are going to continue to care for them in a psychological relationship. So you choose your relationships well. You choose the ones that you're going to outplay, and you choose the ones that you're going to deal with at the altar with Estrella's circle and sword of blue flame. What I'm saying here is your karma and your psychology go hand in hand. Pick what you are going to do with your life and be certain that you do not skip situations that surely do demand something from your heart, some gift of love that must be given to settle and balance perhaps a much larger karma. Now, the roots of Zalem's own psychological problems can be traced to his previous lives as they are unfolded later in A Dweller on Two Planets. I would like to read to you now what he reveals about the karmic prelude to his life on Atlantis. This is from the paperback book, pages 408 to 410. Back to the time of Zalem, we gazed upon a scene on the great continent of Lemuria, or Lemuros. We saw a great house built of stone, standing on a grassy sward, a plain over which roamed herds of cattle and queer little horses, having 3 toes to each foot and high shoulders. Far to the east was a blue mountain range, beyond that a great ocean. But between the manse and mountains flashed a silvery lake. Within the house were many people, servitors all to 2 people, a woman and her son. Gloom overspread all faces, the gloom of blood. To a chief among subordinates the son gave orders. This slave, grim, ferocious, a very incarnation of cruelty, attracted my notice. His brown skin was swarthy, his hands talon-like. Only a breechcloth apparelled him. Receiving his orders, he disappeared, but soon came again, pushing 2 manacled people, plainly of a different race from any there. One was the youth, lithe, erect, rather haughty of mien, his hair brown, his features symmetrical. That individuality of 23,000 years ago is now Soma. The other captive was a fair girl, sister to the youth, it seemed. Her beauty was delicate but voluptuous, the fierce, cruel eyes gleaming like live coals from under the shaggy brows of the master of the house, lighted with admiration as he saw the girl. His heavy-set figure, his coarse jaw, thick neck, and round shaven head all fitted him to be master of the brutish crowd around him. This man extended his hand as if to touch the captive maiden. She shrank away and drew her figure erect in a queenly scorn. "Ha! Unyielding as ever," quoth the master, "we shall see." He nodded to the chief slave, who threw the captive boy on a sort of altar beside him. He bound him, but the victim said firmly, "Sister, yield not, die first." Her eyes shone with an awful light of horror. "Stop his voice," exclaimed the master, and the slave, nothing loath, cut out the poor boy's tongue. "Beast," hissed the girl to the master. "Ha," he replied, "I will prove that true," and he struck the bared breast of the tongueless lad with his own dagger. And tearing out the heart, threw it at the sister's feet. A goblet of the blood was caught, and the master's mother, a priestess who stood by the block, took it and gazed into it. Then she said, "The gods say that the girl also must die." "Say they so? By all the powers I will not obey," shouted the master. "Not though my troops of war fail and the king fails." "My son," said the priestess, "thou mayest not avoid this sacrifice and live, say the gods." "No? Then the gods be served. Give me that knife." He felt its keen edge and then asked, without taking his eyes from the weapon, "Say the gods yet so?" "Even yet," said the priestess. "Bind the maid." And his orders were obeyed, though the girl had fainted. The executioner laid his ear to her breast. A faint smile relaxed his features, and he said in his soul, "She is dead." He laid his hand on her breast, stood erect, and said, "Accept, ye gods, this sacrifice." An instant the knife glittered overhead. The next he had buried it in his own heart. So had the heart that knew no mercy yielded to love. The stern warrior was dead. The gods must have blood, he thought, but he gave his own. What personality was he? Was the girl, dead from horror, myself, and Phyrus. Phyrus is the name of Anzime. So this is the past life of Zalem. Again the dead past revealed another scene. I saw myself in the person of an ill-fed, ill-treated slave, ever hungry, wretched, too much so to feel resentment. I died hungry and then had a devachan of seeming realization of my wants. Then again rebirth, and through a karma not here to be explained, the new man had ease, wealth, plenty. But a physical karma pursued, and he was ever hungry in the midst of plenitude, and lazy when action was necessary. This state begot disease, and the product of, in his previous life, man's inhumanity to man, was afflicted with cancer of the stomach. This killed the ferocious appetite, and the Sybarite, free of this, set to work to cure himself. Finding he must fail, he sought comfort in religion and went forth to the wilderness to become a religious hermit. Now a hermit's life is one of uselessness to mankind. In that lone state, my individuality lost opportunities to cultivate moral strength by worldly contact. And behold me after death come again to life as Zalem, weak enough to sin with Lolix, and beget then a karma that lasted with newly got vigor, till only a few years ago, punishing me more bitterly than death, as thou, friend, knowest. If Zalem had sorrow, thou knowest he had also joy. So every life karma is made up of sunshine and shadow, a tooth for a tooth, yea, but also for a kiss, a kiss. So the roots of Zalem's problems go back to his embodiment on Lemuria as a barbaric master. Zalem's feminine split may have originated when his evil priestess mother on Lemuria, representing the bad feminine, demanded that he kill the good feminine, who is Anzame, embodied in that lifetime as a slave girl. Philos doesn't turn on his evil mother, nor does he kill the slave girl. Instead, he kills himself and avoids the confrontation and the resolution. The conflict between the two representations of his inner feminine is brought forth in succeeding embodiments. In his next life, the barbaric master must now be the slave. He is deprived of nurturance, ill-fed and ill-treated until his dying day. In the following lifetime, he is successful but suffers from insatiable hunger. This could represent his longing for the nurturance of the good mother. He then develops stomach cancer, which kills the insatiable hunger. The cancer could be seen as an expression of self-hatred or the karma for his barbaric behavior in his previous life, or both. Symbolically, the internal bad mother consumes the internal good mother. Again, he avoids resolution and withdraws into the life of a hermit. Thus the stage is set for his next lifetime as Zalem, where he must face a dramatic explosion of these inner dynamics. Our immediate family, including mother, father, and siblings, or others who are significant to us in our early years, is a roadmap to our life challenges. Zalem's embodiments illustrate this fact. Family members may be a mirror of negative characteristics we need to overcome. They may also be a mirror of positive characteristics that we need to expand. Inevitably, they represent our karmic challenges. Thus, you are seldom the victim of circumstances. You are usually the victim of circumstances of your own creating. Your circumstances are your karma. They present the opportunity for karmic resolution and self-transcendence. To become a healthy, whole adult, you have to recognize your psychological problems. Remember, the word psyche means soul. Your soul has problems, and problems you know not of. And that is why we need therapy, or we need books written by therapists that we can read and study. The soul has problems, or the soul would not have descended to this lowly estate of the flesh. The soul has a bigger problem than its psychological problems. It has the problem of figuring out how to get back to that realm of light, to the Father, Mother, God, how to respond to the call of that father and mother, and to move away from Egypt, as we hear the story in that hymn of the pearl. You have to choose what you want to keep, and you have to change what you don't want to keep. Your karma is outpictured in yourself and your primary family through your genes. Through the genes of the primary family, you can trace your ancestral tree. I have some slides that illustrate the roots of our psychology, as it is passed down from generation to generation until we decide to do something about it. I would like to show you these slides at this time. First of all, you'll see on the screen the Tai Chi, and I'd like to have the lights out for these slides. The Tai Chi represents the polarity of our wholeness. The original wholeness of Alpha and Omega within you has been replaced at subconscious levels by false images of the Father and the Mother. You have inherited these false images through your ancestral lineage. These images lie within the subconscious as well as in the unconscious, in what we call the electronic belt. Extending from the waist to beneath the feet, the electronic belt is similar in shape to a large kettle drum. It contains the aggregate records of an individual's negative karma. That kettle drum is sealed, and what is accessible to us is determined by the Lords of Karma with our Holy Christ Self and our Guru, if we have one, before each embodiment. On certain days of the year, under certain cycles of the sun and the moon in our astrology, certain things are open to us where we can see them, we can have an incisive view of ourselves and our records, and if we are alert as Chelas and do our Astrayas and do our calls to the violet flame, we can clear that record. But if we bob along in life without studying ourselves, studying our moods, our emotions, the workings of our mind, what thoughts lodge there, etc., what memories come to the surface, if we are not students of ourselves and observers, and objective observers, because that is what we need to be, then we can go along having all kinds of mishaps and unexpected experiences and all kinds of tensions, depressions, happiness, joys, alternating with the sunshine and the shadow and the storms, and yet not seeing that there is a plan, there is a map, there is a puzzle that can be dealt with. There is a Chinese koan here. We can take it apart and put it together again, but we need to use the Ascended Masters' teachings, the keys they have given us, and the keys they have given us through individuals who have been brilliant in the field of psychology and yet have not had the whole picture of the Ascended Master's path. Now that Tai Chi also represents you as the Father, Mother, God, you and your twin flame, the single fiery ovoid of the Tai Chi, and then the breaking apart of each half of the whole, making the individual causal body, the individual I Am presence, the Christ Self, and the soul in embodiment. So you are Father, Mother, God at the same time as you are child. And sometimes you speak to your child and you love your child, or you rebuke your child, and you teach your child and you prod your child, and other times you are the child and you must have your Father, Mother, God to assist you, or your guru, or good parents, or good friends, or good teachers that you may know. So as I have examined the subconscious of the race of mankind, with Almoria, Cathumi, Dwalkul, and others, they have shown me in the subconscious the focal point for the perverted father and the perverted mother. In other words, the bad father and the bad mother. And they have showed me these in the form of two mackerels. So now you'll see the slides of the two mackerels. Now those two mackerels represent the untransmuted and unresolved father and mother sitting down there somewhere beneath the navel in this large kettle drum. Now we know that the Tai Chi is spoken of as the two fishes, and these fishes pursue one another, or as serpents pursuing one another, and they are swallowing each other's tails. So the fish is the symbol of the Piscean dispensation. This is a symbol of a fish that is an unwanted fish. It is like the perversion of the great sign of the two arcs. I always see the fish as the two arcs, drawing it this way and then this way. So the two arcs of Gemini are manifest in the Piscean sign as the body of the fish, but those arcs are also your Alpha and your Omega. So we take these two Pisces fish And we see them as the perversion of the entire Piscean dispensation. The misuse of that water sign and all the fear, doubt, human questioning, and records of death. We see these mackerels representing the yellow cross on the clock, 28511. The sense of injustice where justice should be, the sense of fear and trepidation and trembling and terror of the night, and records of death and doubt in oneself where there should be God mastery. That point of ignorance, self-ignorance, that begets envy and jealousy because we do not recognize our true self and look all around at what everybody else has as we have supposedly nothing. And so that envy, jealousy, and ignorance of the law is a compromise of the Gemini mind of God, that full power of God's wisdom, wise dominion instead of envy, jealousy, and ignorance. Then you have the Sagittarius line of the conqueror, the path of Lord Maitreya. It is the sign of those who conquer. Its God quality is victory, and it is totally compromised by small-mindedness, pickiness, picking everything apart, and becoming very resentful and revengeful over small things and great things. People hold resentments over very minor things, the way you spoke to them. I've seen this in foreign countries. If I didn't exactly properly greet someone according to his title and stature, I would never recover in his eyes again. So people have all kinds of resentments, and they manifest as cursings. They can become a livid hatred and rage. And so what we are seeing with the mackerels is that our psychology is compromised until we have the yellow cross. The yellow cross is illumination. It's cosmic Christ illumination. And when we have that illumination, we understand ourselves as a soul and as a psychology and a karma that can be worked through and that we can take dominion over. So think of these God qualities: God mastery, God wisdom, God justice, and God victory. And that is what we must have in order to get through this ancestral tree. The mind of Christ and the mind of Buddha must be in us, and we must strive for it and want it. We have to want it more than we want our ignorance, our stupefaction, our mental lethargy, where we don't even have the determination to study so that we can show ourselves approved unto God as disciples of Jesus Christ and Gautama Buddha. There are people who dwell in the macabre, who dwell in the mystery stories. I remember I was visiting a very intelligent and wise author in Britain, and he invited me to his home. And every room in his house, from the bottom to the top, was full of mystery stories, detective stories, murder mysteries. And the house actually had been inhabited by someone who was one of the more famous authors of mystery stories in Britain. Some people just want to delve into death, records of death, and into these terror and spooky types of stories. And that's the 2 o'clock line. They would rather be into all of that astral stuff than into their God mastery. And you see a lot of that in the psychic world. Someone said to me the other day, "Christmas just isn't my holiday. I never have enjoyed Christmas." Now, what my holiday really is, it's Halloween. Now, that's a good holiday. This is a psychology student, by the way. So what I want to tell you is that that is the trap of the 2 o'clock line. And people have a fascination for the Frankenstein monster instead of a total adoration for the living Christ that they can become. And part of that is the fault of religion, because no one's ever told them that they can become the Christ. So there you've got God mastery on the 2, God wisdom on the 5. You either want the wisdom or you want your perpetual gossipy envying and vying and jealousy and who's got what and who's doing what and who's moving up in society and who's got more money and who's got the latest new car. All that stuff that bleeds away the Gemini mind of God. Then you've got a sense that there is no injustice anywhere in the universe, which very phrase itself can heal you of all the sense that you are in a state of injustice because of how you've been treated and what somebody has done to you and all the burdens you've carried in this life. You either go for the injustice and wallow in it forever and try to continually get even with people, or you have the sublime sense of God justice and you know that everything that comes to you is just and you will deal with it for whatever reason it comes. Either it's an initiation, it's karma, it's psychology, whatever. But you know that God is just and He would not deal you something that you could not deal with. Then there comes overcoming the resentment, the revenge, the retaliation, and that is a very sticky karma. And then when you go for the victory and the crown chakra and the raising up of the light, this happens to be by the path of the throat chakra on the 511 axis, you can have a total resolution simply because you see and understand. Understanding is the absolute destruction of the root of error in our consciousness. Just plain understanding. And if you want to have understanding, you need to study. You just don't get it by gazing at the moon. You know, coyotes and dogs do that. But we are Christed ones, and we really have to put our minds to our studies. That's why I'm glad you're coming to Summit University, whether in the physical or the etheric body. Now I'm going to show you the mackerels in the electronic belt. So there's the whole electronic belt, and it is dominated by these two all-seeing eyes, the negative father and the negative mother watching you. And they are simply there, permanent fixtures. They symbolize the acceptance of your origin in human parents. You have to get rid of your sense of a human lineage. Now, you can't get rid of it entirely because you have to realize that very good genes have come through this human lineage. But what you have to realize is that the positive genes, the good material, comes from the Christ, comes from the Ascended Masters, and comes from God. And you have to realize that that is a divine lineage, and that there is a divine lineage and a divine descent that does come through our human parentage, but it is independent of the electronic belt and the human creation. When you want to get rid of that sense, think of the great master Melchizedek, who overcame the concept of a human lineage and a human ancestry. He is described by the author of Hebrews as without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. I'm not sure how Melchizedek got to planet Earth, but what I am certain of is that he had the consciousness of being without human father and human mother. He had totally resolved his human consciousness psychology. He saw himself as an independent id entity in God, walking the earth with his staff, the King of Jerusalem, the priest of the Most High God. Now that is attainment you can achieve in this life, but not unless you're willing to wrestle with your psychology. You can sit and do violet flame all day long, and you can get up and you can walk in the kitchen and you can start an argument with somebody with whom you have karma, because that person represents to you your bad father or your bad mother. And until you recognize that, you will not pull the reins on that human consciousness and say, whoa, we're not going into these bad patterns anymore. We know why we are doing this. We know why we're saying this. We're going to stop. And if the momentum is so great in ourselves that we can't stop, we have recourse to our Holy Christ Self, our mighty I Am Presence, and all of the Ascended Masters. And we will make our fiats. We will watch what comes out of our mouth. We will watch what comes out of our feelings, out of our belly. We will watch what comes out of our minds, and we will put a halt to it, because we are greater than our mind and our feelings and our bellies. We are in Christ, a son, a daughter of God. And every single day you wrestle a little bit, and you are happy when you have put something behind you. And the next day you are caught off guard, and you say something that you would rather not have said, and you see it again, and you go after it again. And you never get discouraged, because you are winning. You are rebuilding the entire structure. And the only way you can rebuild it is brick by brick. If your Holy Christ self came in and knocked down the whole building, you would have no identity, because your identity is based upon your good and bad psychology. When you first become really profoundly aware of your own imperfection, your own sense of sin, your own sense of limitation, and you are a Chela on the path, you run to your guru and say, I want to be rid of this human creation, and I want to be rid of it all at once. Take it from me. I was such a Chela. I ran to Lanello, and I ran to Almoria. And they said, we can't do it. If we would take it from you, we would take away the whole ball of wax of your human identity. You have to consciously replace every element of that identity, brick by brick, half a brick by half a brick, if you wish. And you have to build the new man based on a conscious free will determination. The violet flame is an adjunct to this. The violet flame does not enter in and remake you. It transmutes what you are ready to put into the sacred fire. And what you retain, it does not touch, because it respects your free will. If you want to lose weight, you can't just sit there and give the violet flame. You have to have determination, will, a program, and a certain way of dealing with yourself, where you set up systems where it's difficult for you to find food at the wrong times, and you just set all up this whole system where you make up your mind how much you're going to eat this day and every day, and how much you're not going to eat. And if you really want to lose weight, you will. But if you don't understand why you're overweight, the psychological causes, you may have a very difficult time. That's why you have to go back and start looking at that psychology, study these books that I've named, see a therapist if you want, get to the bottom of what makes you tick, and then go out and work on it again. One thing we know then about Melchizedek is that he transmuted his sense of human lineage. He could no longer be an inheritor of the human karma of his parents, his grandparents, and so forth. But he retained whatever his true lineage was. He retained the genes, the momentums, the endowments that he received from those who had gone before him. And if it was no longer counted a human lineage, then it was a lineage in the hierarchy of the chain of gurus, such as Sanat Kumara, Gautama Buddha, Lord Maitreya, Jesus Christ, and Padma Sambhava. Now you're going to see a slide of mackerels within mackerels. Now you've got two parents and two grandparents on either side. Mackerels within mackerels. See those tiny little mackerels within the two mackerels inside the two mackerels? And so on. They go back and back and back. Holy mackerel. You are the inheritor of all that human creation, and they are human patterns. No wonder you've got troubles, right? But now look at your great causal body behind me. Look at those rings of light. Look at your mighty I Am presence. Look at your Holy Christ self. You are the inheritor of all of that. But all those mackerels have convinced you that you're not, that this really doesn't exist, that the human hereditary chain has got you locked in as a prisoner. Genes and chromosomes are the key. And what I want to tell you about that is that the fallen ones have stolen the genes of Sanat Kumara. That's what the Nephilim did, the fallen angels. And they have preserved their rights of marrying one another to preserve that chain of genes. Many times, the only reason you happen to get born into a family of fallen ones, parents, Nephilim, etc., is because they stole the genes of the sons and daughters of God to begin with, and you are just one of those sons or daughters of God, and you have to get back your genes. And the only way you can do it physically is to get born through those particular people and their human ancestral lineage. And that is how the ascended masters have outsmarted the fallen angels. And that's why you're sitting here today with the genes that are spiritual genes that have the ability to convey through your mind spiritual realities and spiritual truths that other people on this planet haven't the vaguest concept of or notion of and cannot even begin to understand. Because those spiritual genes have been restored to you. And you'll find somewhere in your lineage all the way back that you have very spiritual ancestors, as well as those who've come along seemingly as evil incarnate. So you need to count your blessings and truly never again have a sense of injustice, because God is just and God has made you what you are today, a Chela on the path, capable of attaining reunion with God because you have that understanding. Remember what we learned from a recent labor on the 12th planet. We learned that the point of their creating all of these robots, mechanization man, and sending them here was to have them intermarry with children of the light to finally reduce them to the place that where the children of the light no longer had any tie or any inner sense of oneness with God. And that labor was completed, and it was victorious. But that has been their goal. As long as the fallen ones see one individual in embodiment who yet retains the genes of the living Christ, they are threatened. And this is why we stick together and we pray together and we have a community together, because we recognize not only are we the inheritors of these genes, but we are the progenitors of passing them on to souls of light who must embody and receive that dispensation. You need to assimilate your awareness of the self as God the Father and God the Mother. As you assimilate the qualities and virtues of Alpha and Omega, you become your own Father and Mother. When you become your own Father, Mother, God in manifestation, you are able to let go of the unwanted elements of Father and Mother that are recorded in the subconscious. You discover that you do not need those mackerels. They are in the subconscious because you need them. Your parents may have had a good realization of the self as the Father, Mother, God. This they also passed on to you as virtue. This virtue as the awareness of your Father, Mother, God is locked in the causal body. You can assume that you have inherited tremendous good from your parents or through your parents, as they set the example of love, obedience, wisdom, good training, proper morals, honor, and so forth. But when you start to examine your relationship with your parents, you also find that there may be a push and pull action of karmic substance, such as rebellion, resentment, dislike, hatred, irritation, a sense of injustice, or egos vying with one another. When you think of our karma, it's not easy for the best of ascended master sponsors to put together an astrology for every member of the family where everyone is going to get along harmoniously. Our astrology defines our pack of karma for this life. We may love one another tremendously, but we may have certain things in our astrology that are in conflict. We have to be aware of these things. This is why we know our astrology. We know that we may have a tendency to do this, to do that, to speak out when we shouldn't, and all kinds of things. And we know, as we come to know those whom we love, what burdens them, what offends them, what is difficult for them. And so we take care, because that's the nature of love. We care for one another, and we communicate with one another because we understand that that is the best way to evoke the Christ in that person. And that's something we learn as we go along in life. All that is not so nice in your relationship with parents is what coalesces as these mackerels within mackerels. And all that was not so nice in your parents' relationship with their parents also coalesced as mackerels, because we're dealing with our electronic belt here. We're not dealing with our causal body. So that's what we're talking about, the stuff that holds us up, the hang-ups. So this is what makes up the human lineage and the human hereditary patterns. The violet flame can eat away, little by little, the substance of these mackerels. So here you see the violet flame eating the mackerels. Now that's very important that you recognize that it's little by little. As you see the elements of the mackerel that you're ready to let go of and put into the fire, the violet flame can take it, and it does. So pieces come out and they start to fade. And you get to the spine, you get to the bones, the more recalcitrant part of it, and finally they go. But if you're going through your own psychology, it will take until you have figured it out and resolved yourself with it. Some people see their psychology, but they will not give up their resentment. They will not give up their hatred. I have counseled people and told them that they have a serious hatred of the mother, a serious anger in their subconscious, and they do not have the will to tackle it. They will not go after it. People can be shown exactly what is the problem, but they have this something in their craw that says, I will not let go, I have to get even. I have to be compensated, I have to be paid. This person owes me something. They have treated me this way for 40 years and you want me to walk away and just forgive and walk into the violet flame? Some people will not do it. You have to pray for them. And you have to recognize this stubbornness in yourself when you see it and go after it. Because if that is a point, that stubborn point in you, it may have been there for thousands of years, and it's holding you back. The consciousness of human lineage that the mackerels represent produces what is called the ancestral tree. So here is your ancestral tree. And you can see all of the parts of it. It's a very complex tree. It has many layers, and its roots go through and around the entire planet. Imagine your roots going that far. I have seen where I have made calls after arch fallen ones have passed on, and I have seen their roots cover an area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, being totally intertwined under the earth with all others of the same vibration. And I have seen the Elohim and the archangels guide me in making calls for the uprooting of their tree of evil, carefully, so that it does not cause cataclysm. These roots are so extensive that they've overtaken the earth. You take them all out and there's a giant chasm where they were. So when people pass on, they may go to the court of the sacred fire for judgment, but the records of their karma, the records of their ancestral tree, the records of their roots of evil may not be taken because of what upheaval it will cause in the earth. You remember when Jesus was crucified, there was a great earthquake. There was a tremendous impact upon the elements, and the same is true when a fallen one is permanently removed from the earth. There's a total planetary adjustment. All of those roots are karmic ties, or in the case of fallen ones, they are the links of the chain of evil. And all of those roots represent your ties to every other life stream on this planet with whom you have a love tie, a karmic tie, a positive or negative karma. The Hindus say that we have so many incarnations that we are all related. We've been everybody's mother, father, sister, brother, and so on. And in this community, we say, who are my father, mother, sister, and brother, but those who do the will of God. So this ancestral tree looks like a banyan tree. If you've ever seen one in India that's really old, they're amazing. So you need to invoke the action of the blue lightning and the violet flame, the angels, in order to eliminate the sense of a human lineage represented by the mackerels and the ancestral tree. So here's the lightning coming down on the tree. It will strike it many times before it moves it. But that's the mighty work of the ages. That's the all-consuming work every day of our lives. Then you can see that lightning and the violet flame moving in on that tree. As long as there is an ancestral tree, there will be the mackerels. As long as there are mackerels, there will be the tree. Those mackerels are going down before your very eyes. As the violet flame takes bites out of the human concept of parents, that energy is transmuted. The energy ascends to the causal body, and you come into a greater and greater awareness of the self as father and mother. Here's the violet flame at the base of the tree, and the violet flame comes up and covers the tree. The ancestral tree is saturated with a violet flame before the form actually breaks down. The next slide shows bursts of the lightning of the will of God wielded by blue flame angels who use their swords of blue flame to cut us free from the recalcitrant conditions, the very hard and calcified energies of the ancestral tree. Here's the blue flame angels with their swords moving in. You know, you can visualize blue flame angels at microscopic levels or macroscopic levels, as big or as small as the occasion may require, as in surgery when you need to see them entering the body, and on a grand planetary scale when they need to envelop systems of worlds. Now we see the blue sword in the tree, and the sword in the tree with the violet flame. When you invoke the light of God to remove the ancestral tree and mackerels, you discover that all of this substance in your subconscious buried your true identity as the Father, Mother, God. Down underneath the tree are the roots. You see the slide of the tree fallen over? And the slide of the tree fallen over with violet flame. These roots surrounded and completely buried a blue egg. It is a blue cosmic egg depicted at the very bottom of the slide. That egg represents your Tai Chi in matter, your Father, Mother, God. Your real Father, Mother was buried by your sense of human lineage and the karma of the ancestral tree. The energy released by the process of transmutation spirals to the white fire core of your own I Am Presence for repolarization. Each time you invoke light, the particles of energy cycle back to this great central sun. They rise over a fiery coil, spiraling in a clockwise direction to the center of being. Once the egg is uncovered, the angel of the presence takes it and carries it to the tree of life. And next you see the tree of life. The branches of your tree of life represent your causal body, and the egg represents the Father, Mother, God firmly placed in the center. The 12 manner of fruits of the tree of life manifest as jewels, the fruits of good works in the spheres of the causal body. This tree is the real family tree. It is the family of ascended masters and devotees. It is our real family of the mystical body of God on earth and in heaven. Millions of people can live off of the attainment that you bring forth from your causal body. You can become a tree of life to all mankind. The trunk of the tree of life is what we call the crystal cord. At the plane of the Christ self, there is the same awareness of the Father, Mother, God, depicted as another blue egg. That's the point of your Holy Christ self. And now we come to the roots of the tree of life. These roots are like the cosmic blueprint that is intended to manifest in the electronic belt. These roots have a design. They are extensions of the self, drawing the light of the earth from the sun of even pressure at the heart of the earth, which is, so to speak, the earth's base chakra, the mother source. The roots of the tree of life symbolize that you are totally non-attached to the human sense of heredity and ancestors. All of these veins of consciousness go to the fiery core of the planet. They draw forth the virtues of the causal bodies of all who have ever overcome and attained Christ mastery on earth. Now you see the roots and the egg. These roots are extending downward into the earth. Where before there were mackerels in the subconscious, now there is the focus of the cosmic blue egg of the Father, Mother, God. We're going to see a close-up view of the egg in the subconscious and the bottom portion of the tree and the whole tree of life, and then the chart. So there are the roots, taking in the whole earth. As you receive light, you give light. So our tree of life sustains the planetary body we walk on. There's the upper part of the tree of life that we show on the chart of the great causal body above with all of its fruits. So it's as above, so below. We see the spirit and matter cosmos and the intercessor of the Christ in the center. That is the pattern of our true ancestral tree. I would like to define for you the term subconscious. It is defined as the mental activities just below the threshold of consciousness, which can be easily brought to consciousness. It is the aspect of the mind that is an entity or a part of the mental apparatus overlapping, equivalent to, or distinct from the unconscious. It either overlaps, is the equal of, or it is distinct from the unconscious. Some psychoanalysts use the term subconscious to describe a zone between the unconscious and the conscious mind. I would subscribe to that, but it has a greater definition than that. As summarized by Dr. Robert Goldenson, in psychoanalysis, the term unconscious is used to denote the portion of the mind or mental functioning which contains the memories, wishes, and impulses that are not directly accessible to awareness, but which have dynamic effects on thought and action. So the primary thing you want to remember about the subconscious and the unconscious is that you have daily access to your subconscious. In fact, if you want to put yourself in a mode of contacting readily the subconscious, you close your eyes. You close your eyes and meditate, you close your eyes and rest, you relax, and things come to you. The open eyes are considered the sign of the conscious mind, the closed eyes, the subconscious. The unconscious is a realm that is for all intents and purposes sealed. People normally do not have direct access to it at all. Freud maintained that there are two types of mental contents stored in the unconscious. He says that there are certain infantile or primordial wishes and impulses that have never become conscious, but which appear or are represented in dreams, fantasies, magical thinking, and gestures. 2, he said there was material such as memories and drives that has become conscious for a time but has been expelled from awareness. Modifying Freud's concepts, Carl Jung theorized the personal and the collective unconscious. As Goldenson writes, Jung postulated that the personal unconscious consists of experiences which were once conscious, but which have been superseded or forgotten, as well as ideas and wishes which have never been strong enough to make a conscious impression. Some of these memories, thoughts, and feelings may split off from the main body of the psyche due to traumatic experiences or internal conflicts, and form a constellation or complex of their own, Jung says. The collective unconscious is the residual of the racial history of man and his animal ancestors. It is an accumulation of predispositions and potentialities which in its totality forms the frame of reference with which we view the world. Jung calls these structural components archetypes. A-R-C-H-E, types, archetypes. They arise from historical experience and constitute the inherited foundations upon which the whole structure of the personality is built. In a word, each individual's psyche reflects the wisdom and experience of the ages. The Ascended Masters teach that the subconscious is the repository of the electronic belt, which contains the cause-effect record and memory of human karma in its negative aspect. The unconscious is the repository of the archetypes of the absolute evil, of death and hell. The unconscious is a realm of absolutes, and it should be the repository of the absolute presence of the I am that I am. And when we saw the bottom part of the ancestral tree in the roots, we're looking at the unconscious as well as the subconscious. And we're seeing these compartments of being filled with God. The collective unconscious is jointly held by the human race. The individual or personal unconscious is the result of personal actions only. There are levels of the intensity of absolutes that are, you might say, extensions of the electronic belt that is in the subconscious, that is in the unconscious. Each time we pervert one of the attributes of God, as we chart them on the cosmic clock, it has a corresponding manifestation in the subconscious and or the unconscious, as the case may be. So here you are standing in your own electronic belt. First of all, we look at the 12 o'clock line. That line is the line of God power. It is the line of the crown chakra. Here is the figure of a witch or a black magician misusing the power of God and the kundalini. You can see that serpent behind as the kundalini misused through the crown chakra in the misuse of the sacred science. That entire momentum of witchcraft and black magic is funneled in criticism, condemnation, and judgment. Another word for judgment is the mortal cursing. So if we have ever so misused God's power, some similar thought forms will be in our electronic belt. Since an unkind word is a curse and a condemnation, there is nary a soul on earth that doesn't have some substance on the 12 o'clock line in the electronic belt. Now we look at the 1 o'clock line. It is the seat of God love, the hierarchy of Aquarius, the hierarch Saint Germain. The perversions of love are hate and hate creation, mild dislike, and there is all the Martian energies under it also that are perversion of love, anger, etc. We see a polar bear and a shark. They are known as man-eating beasts of prey. This is the force of hatred, man's inhumanity to man coming back upon him through the beasts of his own electronic belt. The other side of hatred is indifference, and that indifference is the other side of the viciousness of these types of animal forms. So what we are saying here as we show the electronic belt is that hatred, anger, mild dislike, and condemnation does not just go out as a mass of energy that has no shape, but it takes the form of animal creations. And in fact, this is how the beasts of prey, perversions of animal life, came into being, by the misuse of the light and the genes and the chromosomes of man. So thoughts and feelings coalesce into lower forms. Dissonant forms, they may not be animal forms, but they may be very dark forms of perverted symbols and art, perversions of the human body, and so forth. The 2 o'clock line, which is the line of Pisces, of Jesus Christ, of God Mastery, shows a skull. The perversion of God Mastery in the solar plexus is the records of fear, doubt, human questioning, and death. Every fear and doubt leads to death. If you were to look at the 3 and 4 o'clock lines of your clock, you might see a pirate, the typical perversion of rebellion and the ego. It's going to do its own thing no matter what. And the way that seemeth right is the way that leads to death. 3 o'clock line is the line of Aries, the line of God control, perversion, conceit, deceit, arrogance, and ego. 4 o'clock line is Taurus. The God quality is God obedience, and the perversion is disobedience, stubbornness, and defiance of the law. The 5 o'clock line, the line of Gemini, of God wisdom, shows a green demon, the focal point of envy, jealousy, covetousness, and absolute ignorance. Anybody who was once an angel, who went forth to pervert God and corrupt the Divine Mother and her Son, has got to be a moron of the lowest order. And that is the point of ignorance, the point of absolute ignorance perverting the mind of Christ. The 6 o'clock line is the hierarchy of Cancer. The attribute is God harmony. Now, cows are very harmonious creatures. They don't make much trouble, and they simply chew their cud. But the cow is a symbol of the perversion of God as mother. The cow consciousness is overprotective, sympathetic, instead of compassionate. The consciousness that without me life cannot survive, and the chewing of the cud is the endless chatter and gossip that dissipates the sacred fire of the base chakra that is charted on that line. The demons are perpetual chatterers, and they pervert the throat chakra, which was on the 5 o'clock line of Gemini, the 511. And on the 3 and 4 o'clock line, we had the heart chakra and the third eye chakra, respectively, perverted by the typical pirate, typical rebel. We go to the 7 o'clock line. Here is the lion, the untransmuted lion, not the higher symbol of the lion, of ingratitude, insensitivity to life. Again, the beast that is ready to pounce. That is the seat of the soul chakra again. The quality is God gratitude. The hierarchy is Leo. The 8 o'clock line, a sense of injustice. 2 individuals struggling. The warring in our members. This also relates to the Gemini line. The emotions versus the mind versus the emotions. The sense of injustice always involves what someone else did to you. That's the line of Virgo. The God quality is justice. The 9 o'clock line of Libra, of God reality. The misuse of the ego. It's an octopus, and it's the misuse of the ego in the heart chakra. This is treachery and intrigue. That's what the ego uses in its own defense. This is the undercover, underwater consciousness, the sliminess of getting away with as much as it can get away with by subterfuge. The 10 o'clock line, the line of God vision, the third eye chakra. Here we see a scorpion. The perversion is selfishness and self-love. The selfishness, grasping, imperfect vision of God. and the destroying of that vision by the scorpion's sting. The scorpion is the perversion of the third eye, and the higher symbol of Scorpio, as you know, is the eagle. The 11 o'clock line is the line of Sagittarius, the line of God victory and of the throat chakra. Here we see a dinosaur form, the revenge against the light of the Christ within every son and daughter of God. That shows how great the dweller on the threshold can become. The serpent in the middle of this clock, of the electronic belt, represents your dweller on the threshold. The dweller on the threshold is the combination of all of the perversions of God. The serpent or serpentine mind is the origin of the dweller. Now you can see the entire electronic belt perversions. And you can see a slide of a devotee with a purified electronic belt. On August 14th, 1989, Mother Mary explained how crucial it is to come to grips with repetitive problems and addictions that are a signal of psychological problems. I wish to play you an excerpt of her dictation. Please take notes.
When you have wondrous qualities of light, and they do shine, but you have an area of your life that lags behind, such as a repetitive problem of alcohol, or some other manifestation, or perhaps lying, or perhaps misusing of other people's funds, and on and on. This is hard for people to understand. It presents a dilemma. How can one be a student on the spiritual path and still engage in these indulgences? If you are the victim of these indulgences yourself, if you, in other words, engage in them and find yourself trapped in them repeatedly again and again, and see it now as a pattern of your life stream and of a lifetime, you must understand that these situations should no longer be regarded as spiritual problems, but they should be regarded as psychological problems. And the difference is this, beloved. A psychological problem cannot be resolved until the individual can take apart the components that make up that problem, and in the process actually take apart elements of the soul and the soul's personality development in this life and sometimes in previous lifetimes. For the individual to overcome these repetitive problems or addictions, the individual must be able to look at how they have come upon his life stream in this lifetime, and then tackle through the calls for the binding of the dweller on the threshold, through astrayas, through naming of the entities and discarnates, through adjusting and balancing one's physical diet and lifestyle, through protecting oneself by reinforcing oneself by right association with individuals who have strength, who have wholeness or a semi-wholeness in their psychology and a spiritual strength as warriors of the spirit on the path. Thus you see, to associate with those of similar predilections and addictions, you may find yourself easily trapped in those circumstances because it may be the weakest point of your personality where there is not only a development problem, but a corresponding rent in the garment and even tears in the corresponding chakras. So you see, beloved, you cannot transmute with the violet flame or astrayas those elements that are wanting in the personality, because it requires that you consciously tear down and build anew that personality on that particular line of the clock and in that particular area of your life. You simply cannot suppress it, ignore it, pretend it does not exist, be annoyed with others when they may gently point out to you that such and such problem does exist. If you have a repetitive problem with anger or a temper or outbursts with co-workers, you must understand that this is first and foremost a psychological problem that must be pursued. It is, of course, also a spiritual problem because it shows a repetitive capacity to allow hordes of demons to rupture the harmony of one's force field, come rushing through the solar plexus, come out in the spoken word as the tie to the throat chakra is to the solar plexus, and to allow the demons that rush through to take one's light, to misuse it in putting very heavy energy upon others, and to drain oneself of that energy and leave one, as it were, spiritually and psychologically raped. So you see, beloved, when this occurs repetitively, you must know that it is and can be likened to an illness of the psyche. It is not something that you can consciously say no to. It is something that must be dealt with by taking apart and putting together again. And this is what we mean when we talk about the recreation of oneself. To go before Elohim and to declare, I desire to engage in the mighty work of the ages, the recreation of myself through Almighty God, through Elohim. When you see and realize that there are elements in your being that are now a permanent part of yourself as the creation, and when you say to yourself, this is not my real self, and I no longer desire to be cast in this mold, it is then that you cry out to the creators of form, the builders of form, the Elohim, and you say, oh God, help me in this alchemical process by the Holy Spirit to recreate myself in the divine image of my Holy Christ self who is smiling upon me. The recreation of oneself is a day-to-day process.
In her dictation following the Christmas Eve service this year, Mother Mary emphasized that we must cast out the unwanted child syndrome that may be limiting our progress on the path. We will listen to an excerpt of it. Therefore I say the most important resolution that you must take must be taken in this hour for the final days of the year, that you will cast out the unwanted child syndrome. You will cast out all of that psychology that limits you as to who and what you are and who you can be. All these things are a block to your creativity, to your abundance, to the supply that is most urgently needed in this hour. See it for what it is, and do not return to it except to vanquish it by plunging that mighty sword of Archangel Michael that you own into the very heart of that record. Pursue all other means available, beloved, for you must overcome every concept of limitation that has been placed upon you and that you have accepted. Do not accept the concept of human parents. You are born of divine parents, and know that they are perfect, and they are your true Father, Mother, God. They have never disappointed you, never misled you, never left you alone, not to be loved. Blessed ones, accept the divine parents, for to see yourself the victim of human parents any longer, I say, is more than a travesty. It is a betrayal of your Father, Mother, God. And after so much teaching of lifetimes, you must come to the resolution that your parents are your parents, whether by assignment, by initiation, or by karma. You must praise God and move on. You must know your divine parents were always there. And whatever you are today must be the result of your own determination to claim those true parents. They are Alpha and Omega. They are Helios and Vesta. They are the twin flames of Archangel and Archei. In fact, they are the ascended twin flames of any masters whom you desire to call your parents. Beloved, we all embody the Father, Mother, God. Each one of us individually is androgynous. We come to you, we offer our all, and we do it again and again. On January 27, 1985, the Ascended Master Cathumi, the great psychologist, revealed the landmark dispensation he had received from Lord Maitreya to work with us individually for the healing of our health and our psychology. He said, I come, the joyful student, to announce to you the most precious dispensation which comes from Maitreya, placed upon me by him with all diligence, and the same concern for the step-up of your lives. This dispensation is my assignment to work with each one of you individually for your physical health and for the healing of your psychology, that we might swiftly get to the very cause and core of physical as well as spiritual and emotional conditions, that there be no more setbacks or indulgences, and surely not 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Thus, from this hour, if you will call to me and make a determination in your heart to transcend the former self, I will tutor you both through your own heart and any messenger I may send your way. Therefore, heed the voices, not astral but physical, and watch the course of events. And of course, when you have the opportunity to receive my word from the messenger, know truly that I use her often to explain to you the intricacies of the blocks in consciousness. In conclusion today, I would like for us to look at our karma and our psychology through exploring astrology. So first of all, I'd like to make a chart on the blackboard. This time it's the ghost of Pisces, the fish of Pisces, that's going to remain with us on this chart. It's not the mackerel, though. So draw yourself a circle on your notes, please. And let's define the 4 quadrants, 12, 6, 3, 9. Now I would like to outline for you the steps of the path of the ruby ray and the astrological notes which I have for these lines. So we're going to draw in only the lines 1 and 4 and 7 and 10. In other words, the pink cross on the clock. Please unite your 1-7 axis and your 10-4 axis. This is the ruby ray cross because the hierarchies of the sun that figure on these lines are all of the pink or ruby flame. You have Aquarius on the 1 o'clock line, Taurus on the 4, Leo on the 7, Scorpio on the 10. The first thing I would like to take up with you on these lines is the houses, because the houses denote what is important about you. So taking a hypothetical chart, I've chosen to use the chart of someone whose rising sign is Aquarius, because that comes into play with the path of the ruby ray, and I wanted to use the pink cross today. So we're going to look at the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses. Now, the first house is the ascendant. So if your ascendant is Aquarius, that is your first house. And it's the degree of the sign of the zodiac on the eastern horizon at the moment of birth. So these 4 houses, 1, 4, 7, and 10, deal with the self and interpersonal relations. Likewise, so do these 4 points on the clock deal with the path of the ruby ray, which deal with the self's integration with God. In a sense, these houses correlate with the cardinal points of the clock, the Father, Son, Mother, and Holy Spirit. So we're looking at this ruby ray cross in connection with the quadrant that it is in. The first house is the house of self. It shows the individual's basic mode of self-expression. It rules personality, appearance, and self-expression. It has an Aries substructure and therefore an Aries character. This sign on the ascendant which in this case is Aquarius on the 1 o'clock line, tells how a person is likely to express himself. It describes the basic elements of his personality and often his physical appearance. Aquarius is an air sign which governs the dissemination of knowledge. It is ruled by Uranus, the planet which gives the impulse for individual and collective freedom of thought and action. It is co-ruled by Saturn, which gives those with Aquarius rising a sense of responsibility. Self-expression of those with Aquarius on the first house cusp: they tend to be independent, friendly, philosophical, humanitarian, and to express themselves in an original manner. They also tend to be scientific, objective, emotionally detached, impersonal, and interested in evolutionary and revolutionary ideas. They can be utopian, practical, or both. Usually a friend to all and work for the good and often the liberation of a group or for humanity as a whole. How many people here happen to have Aquarius as your ascendant? Put your hands up real high so everybody can see you. Okay. Now the negative expression of an Aquarius rising, which you would want to go after with your Estrellas and your violet flame. Every ascendant has a negative aspect. Would be eccentric, undependable, overly detached, disruptive, anarchic, tyrannical, dogmatic, stubborn, and impulsive. Have difficulty in relationships due to an unwillingness to surrender something they consider to be, but which is not essential to their individuality or personal freedom. Now the fourth house of someone with an Aquarius rising would fall on Taurus, and that house is the house of home, mother, and environment. It reveals the nature of the individual's emotional world and the psychological environment that grew out of early childhood and family experiences. It represents a person's roots, psychologically and genealogically. It has a Cancer substructure and therefore a Cancer character. If Aquarius is on the ascendant, then Taurus is usually on the fourth house cusp. Taurus is an earth sign and rules stability and permanence in matter. Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet which gives a love of beauty, form, and music, and tends to harmonize and balance relations between individuals and groups of people. With Taurus on the fourth house cusp, an individual is likely to want a comfortable or beautiful home as a base of operations and a place of refuge. They usually desire to achieve material or artistic success. Mother and home life greatly influence the direction and nature of the individual's pursuit of material security. Likely to be sensitive, determined, practical, patient, and good-natured, extremely loyal, and have a strong desire to nurture and protect others. The negative manifestation of Taurus on the fourth house cusp is if the person does not have what he considers to be adequate financial or material resources to carry out his life's work, he is likely to feel insecure and threatened. As a result, he may be overly acquisitive or materialistic. Also, he could be possessive, jealous, stingy, controlling, lazy, prone to occasional but violent fits of anger, stubborn and unwilling to adapt to the needs or methods of others.